Well, welcome to the Lili channel. That's laughter, like with tree removal, inspiration, like the two people in front of me, learning from all three of us, and innovation. Well, YouTube is innovative and everything we do is somehow innovative. I have brought these two together because it's Financial Literacy Month for a couple more days. My channel is about bringing resources, about having more fun with everyday life, swapping ideas, being real, having fun. So we're going to be covering 5 questions. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5. We've got Caroline Collins-Rank here, as well as John Mackey. Woo! Yay! I'm so grateful for the two of you. Now, why did I call these two on here? Well, because in addition to my background, and I'll talk about that later, I wanted to find someone who was super passionate about the whole money picture without necessarily being involved in it from an income point of view, and who lives everyday life the way she believes that people ought to. So walking her talk, and that would be Caroline. Super passionate about it. I'm going, just a total inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
Plus, we're close friends from Meetup, which always helps. Meetup is a great venue for meeting people that you might otherwise not have connected with. And then John Mackey is a relatively new friend of mine for ours from Power Talk seminars. And because of his previous experiences, not only with being bugged by debt collectors, if I'm right, as well as working with them, having an inside view, and letting you know how the hell to handle it. Plus being I don't know if you're newly published or it's a dang good title. I can't wait to see the book.
No, the book was published a few years ago.
Okay.
And it's due for an update right now because there was a new regulation that came out called Regulation F, and which allowed the debt collectors to come after you using social media. And before they couldn't, now they can. They can now call you multiple times a day, but only a certain amount of times per week. So some of it's changed.
Okay.
So
once again, we've got the one who's passionate about the subject and isn't in the industry in the sense of formally, but is taking in the information constantly, improving her life because of it and her family's bottom line, as well as our credit specialist and myself. I have been part of the welfare program. Technically, well, WIC program is not officially a welfare program, but is considered as such. And I was there for 15 years in customer service. I am with another membership-oriented program now with the marketing side of it. So I see different angles of the whole money picture. So you imagine Costco and you imagine a WIC program, totally different worlds. And on top of that, life coach. So it's a medley, but today I get to hear Caroline's viewpoint and John's, both from the home ec side view as well as consumer, parent, etc. First question out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
okay.
Please subscribe, like, share, click, etc. You know the drill. But we have, who or what are you most grateful to or for being better with the money thing, whether it's earning, spending, etc. Who would like to answer?
Caroline. Also,
Okay. John then.
I learned the most, believe it or not, as a child, watching my dad and being angry at him for not spending money. He was a blue-collar worker in the aviation industry. He raised his family on one income, and his total goal, along with my mom, was for my mother to stay at home and being able to provide us a solid home structure. Not to say that other people do it differently and can't have that solid home structure, but that was his goal, and that was his goal back then. He was a World War II vet. He was also a man that grew up during the Depression. And during the Depression, he learned his lesson that every penny counts. And he would, when I'm talking pennies now, Everything was put into a ledger. Everything had a receipt. Everything was structured with him, and no money left without his approval. Now, in this day and age, that would not work. Many of his stuff does, but that particular part of it wouldn't. He would have been a proud member of Dave Ramsey because he had one credit trade line on his credit report for his entire life.
Wow.
And that was his home loan. He got that paid off within the first 7 years of ownership of that house. Now, with that said, I'm going to go off a long diatribe. I may take the entire hour and a half or whatever time we do we have, but we can't live like that way anymore. He saved his money. He put it into savings. But we've got so many different avenues now to put our money into: 401ks, matching funds from employers. But the problem is that the development of the credit score created the need, and the advertising that is put out there about what is your credit score, it creates this desire that we transformed from a savings society into a spending society. Nobody saves anymore. By nobody, I'm being very general. But we know that the majority of people don't have enough money to save. We know that income is less, and how much difficulty people have when you're trying to live on minimal income. Somebody gets sick, they lose an income. Household incomes are based on dual incomes. So I know I'm going off here, but that's the person that I respected the most in the credit education area.
Huh. And you, Caroline?
My parents, who I'll say were very well educated, had a lot of education, read a ton of newspapers, just really looked for knowledge. But they didn't have a lot of knowledge when I was growing up about personal finance. So, I got the save your money. If you want to buy something, save for it. Don't go into debt to buy it. All good information, right? But I didn't get a whole lot of information about investing. My mom took my brother and me to a stock. I think she owned stock in AT&T, and she took us to a stockholders meeting once. And of course, we were like completely overwhelmed. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't know what it was. But kind of heard some rumblings about owning stock. But I really didn't know very much about it. And I discovered through the Ormond show on CNBC way back in the 90s, I think it was, and really watched that every weekend, read her books, started looking for books by other people. David Bach, I read some of his books. And then just recently, in the last few years, I have wanted to expand. So I started listening to Dave Ramsey because I wanted to hear, he's such a huge presence in the space, this space that I'm so interested in. I wanted to hear what he had to say. So I could learn a little bit and hear his alternative viewpoints on some things, and just also know what other people are talking about when they mention things about him. And discovered along the way the FIRE movement, which is financial independence, retire early.
Oh.
And Mr. Money Mustache, who's like kind of the biggest player in that space, and Paul Pant and the Choose FI guys, and JL Collins, and just really expanding my horizons and trying to hear about all these different viewpoints and all these different approaches to personal finance. So I'm a late bloomer, came to this late, unfortunately, but we've really my husband and I in the last 10 years have really kind of doubled down and tried to figure out what we needed to do to catch up and get ourselves in a good place. And I'm fascinated by all of it. I listen to hours and hours a day. I read blogs, I listen to podcasts, I read books. I find it completely enthralling, but I realize I'm kind of not the norm. Most people don't find it all that interesting. And so I would love to be able to help other people kind of distill down what I've learned and help people that aren't that interested in it just kind of get a snapshot of what they need to know so they can not be overwhelmed and move on with what they need to know, because it can be overwhelming. It really can. And luckily, my parents know a lot now, and I can sit down and have conversations with them now about the things that they've learned. But back when I was growing up, it just wasn't that much. There weren't that many options. Roth IRAs hadn't come into the fore yet. There were still a lot of pensions, so people weren't having to take care of their own retirement. So it's just been a real journey from not knowing much to now being really consumed by it and trying to learn everything I can, and wanting to help other people learn that as well without totally overwhelming them and making them just shut down and go into a fetal position like, I don't want to know anymore. But yeah, so that's kind of where I am. My parents are very well-intentioned, save, which is a good thing, live within your means, which is a good thing, but that's kind of just the tip of the iceberg. And I kind of don't think that's enough to know anymore. And John's right, with all the credit, people just, it's almost impossible to get through life now without dealing with credit. And so knowing about that is so important, and knowing how to manage it within your means and not get yourself in trouble where you have to dig out from it. Because if you have debt, you can't build wealth very well.
No, so true. It's so interesting to hear both of your backgrounds, because I'm first generation American. My parents got here from Hungary in 1965, and the only reason they were able to get a home or a house after being in an apartment for 3 years, I think, was that they were both physicians, and the person they, I guess, talked with about the home had faith in them. They barely had a checking account. And then I remember my mom teaching me probably at age 15 that I really needed to get a credit card to have some sort of credit history. And I was like, yeah, what? Okay, fine. She said, and then you pay it off every month. I'm like, okay. I think I maybe used it once or twice. And my dad had taught me to set up a savings account. And I think I was the only kid in the family who did that. I remember calling to inquire what the balance of my savings account is. I swear I sounded just like him when I said it. I'm thinking, you don't have to sound like him, just say what he says. And I think I had $70 in my account one time. I thought, wow. So I was proud. And it wasn't really discussed in terms of technicalities. It was more like, okay, we are not going to have a cabin like everybody else does. We're going to Hungary in 2 years to see grandma. Or we don't get fancy clothing because we want to go to a concert instead. So they taught values in that sense. I remember my dad being laid off when I was 13, and we almost moved to Boston because my mom's part-time clinic income wasn't going to cover the whole family, and we were in a state of panic. That's the one time I really felt like something was different. Otherwise, we weren't shoppers at all. In fact, it's almost like sickness in our family. Maybe my brother likes shopping more than the rest of us, but that's not saying much. We really are like, don't bring me in there. Not even online. It's really funny. That has been maybe our saving grace, no matter how expensive life gets, is we can't stay out shopping. But I have had to educate myself in other ways, because while it is important to save and to not shop in certain places, as far as budgeting, didn't really even think about it. I guess my one claim to fame is Financial Fitness book, and there are many, many books out there, as you've heard Caroline say. That one really resonated with me because of its basic language, written by entrepreneurs who went through hell and fixed things for themselves. I think I mentioned earlier that just because of where I've worked, I've seen different points of view, but I'd say my gratitude goes to my parents for teaching me about the saving, about the giving back, actually. It was like at each maybe birthday or holiday, we'd go through the closets and see which toys we'd give away. And just as far as really not spending when you don't need to have the item, because they grew up with sort of, I wouldn't say communist mentality, it was more like they're from a communist country, so everything was scarce to begin with, and they weren't dying to buy everything. Actually, that made them somewhat unique, because they had friends who survived the Holocaust who didn't care to save at all, because who knows what's going to happen with your life anyway. It was just interesting points of view. I'm being really verbose here. So we'll take a 10-second break and then come the
Well, it's
mistake.
interesting because we could keep on going on this one particular area. The major point that I want to make with this, amount of misinformation we have out there, and where do people get the truth? That is so important. The other thing is, as far as my lifetime, it's only been recently that we're a media-driven generation. At the younger people, it's media-driven, and everything you watch, people want. The media, the advertising, tries to get you to buy things all the time, and it's a constant repetition on that. And until we get away or understand how we're being manipulated, now I'm sounding like I don't know, some conspiracy theorist, but the reality is that we are being manipulated through advertising on what to buy, how much to spend. 30% interest isn't that much, things along that line. Well, we've got to open our eyes.
You know what, you just made me realize that another thing I was grateful to for my parents is the fact that I had a TV watching limit of 30 minutes a day. And the other thing was we did Lent, which really taught us discipline. We didn't follow everything that Catholics do, but that was one thing we really did. And that I almost wish it stuck more, but in many senses it has. So those were the gratitude minutes. Now we get to go on to the big mistakes. So viewers, what big mistakes have you made with the money thing, whether it's spending, saving? In my case, it's not like the only one, but the biggest one that comes to mind is investing in mentorship that I could have probably gotten for free. And I actually did a video on this several months ago. I'll put that in the description box. I will give the rest of it to, let's try Caroline this time.
Okay, so I think my biggest mistake, honestly, is just not starting to invest early enough. I wish with my very first paycheck, even if it was only 25 bucks, I wish that I had started then. Part-time job, it's not like they had a 401k set up or anything that I could have done, but I do wish that I had been able to set up an IRA and start investing right out of the gate. That would have made a huge difference. Also, just being able to have a little bit of education on investing and what a difference it makes to start early, because like the three big components are time, discipline, and then having the money to invest. And I would add on to that knowledge, because if you have the time, the discipline, and the money, it doesn't matter if you don't have the knowledge. So I would have started earlier. Also, I leased a car at one point. Never again. I will not ever lease again. I can't imagine ever leasing again. And, aside from that, just not really, spending without really kind of thinking about the opportunity cost. Every dollar you spend is a dollar you don't invest. And that dollar could have grown hundreds of times over if I had invested it instead of spending it in my teens and 20s and 30s. So all of those things are things my daughter will be hearing about over and over again until she shuts the door on me. But yeah, all of those things would have made a huge difference.
That's really cool. I mean, that you learned it.
Yeah, that I learned it. Yeah, experience is a great teacher.
Oh God, yeah.
It's even better if you can learn from someone else's experience, ideally, but yeah, good teacher.
John, how about you? What was one of the biggest mistakes that you've made in the money arena?
Oh, money. Okay, I'm just kidding, because I've made so many mistakes. Is when I was making a lot of money, is not putting some away. Back in 2008, I had a business. I owned my own business and I lost everything. And I had my house tied to that business. So when I lost the business, I lost my house. And it was a brutal, eye-opening experience. And I think the idea, there's so many issues and it goes down into money, but it also, goes into credit, but money, compounding. If people understood the nature of compounding, what that means, and I've got a lot of things that we can talk about, but for example, bad credit is the thing that I know personally and being able to teach it, is the fact that if you had, let's say, a 620 credit score at the age of 20 and 720 credit score at the age of 20, meaning two people, and we follow them through life, the amount of money difference equates out to $5.2 million if you were to have taken that money difference between bad credit and good credit and put it into a savings account or an account investment. See, that's the key. We got to be smart with our money. We don't need all of the things. And one of the things that I'm working on right now is an educational platform on credit and the fact of the amount of money and how much we're spending. But what do we need? We need food, clothing, shelter, and transportation. Other than that, well, we need to pay our taxes, but that's money. And some people get away without it and then get put into prison and then get taken care of. So I suppose if you want to get taken care of that way.
Plan B retirement plan, right?
Well, there you go.
Oh my God.
They've made it so difficult in the credit system to understand the process that it's all I want to do in what I'm doing, speaking, talking, educating, is showing the truth. Because when people know the truth, when people know about investing, when they know about their credit and their credit score and what they're doing to themselves, they can stand tall. Because it's not a matter of not taking the abuse. Debt collectors, if you start knowing what they can do, what they can't do, you don't have to avoid the phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple. But they've beaten them up to the point where people are committing suicide. They're doing a lot of stupid things because of the amount of abuse that people take. All I'm saying is, listen to me. I sound like an old dad now, don't I? Listen to me, follow me, don't reinvent the wheel. Take care of this. I'm sorry.
You actually led into the next question, so we might as well do that one. Drum roll. One thing that you'd like to teach your kids based on your parental experience. And I'm not answering this one, or I'm not planning to, because I have a stepson that I have no parenting experience with technically. Well, how about, you want to keep going since you were on a roll?
John?
Get back on the soapbox.
What you want to teach kids?
First of all, nobody is. Now, all of a sudden, everybody's getting on the bandwagon to teach it. What they're going to teach are budgeting skills. That's what they're going to teach. And that's great. They should be teaching budgeting skills. But how much to spend for certain items? For example, a home loan or where you live, rent, should be no more than 28% of your gross income. And even that might be considered high. But we're approving people up to 50% for home loans. Trust your gut when it comes to money. If someone says you can afford something, the benefit is not to you, the benefit is to them in the selling of the product. My son is a lot better than I am or was. And I think a lot of it has to do with what I've been showing him, how this is affecting other people, how this affects and creates poverty, the spending of the money, the medical problems that people are having and that their effect going on in credit reports and the misinformation. Anyway, again, I'll get off my soapbox, but there's so much misinformation. He listens to me, he understands, and he's doing a lot better than I did.
So whether it's grade school or high school, you'd be teaching kids budgeting and...
I don't know if kids will learn at that age. What we're doing right now is developing some educational information for juniors and seniors in high school. And I think it's okay if you start there. You can tease into it, but if people don't understand basic math, how can you budget? Now, with that said, there are so many different kinds of spreadsheets out there that can be modified or made, and I've done that through Excel, or that's been made for you, and everything on the web right now you can check out. But
Oh, yeah, I
it's
get
just
that.
being able to live within your means. That's what you need to do.
And Caroline, what's your take on it? What would you teach kids based on the experience you've had with Livy?
So I have a 10-year-old right now, and she'll talk to you all day long about people first, then money, then things, which is your tagline, which she learned a long time ago. We've talked about needs versus wants and how we need to focus on our needs. And once we've covered all of those, all of our financial obligations, if there's anything left, we can look into some wants, but that we need to take care of, all of our bills and everything, our 4 walls, the place, all of our food and clothes and shelter and a reliable car and all of those things. And then we have to invest and we have to have our savings. And then if there's anything left, we can spend it on things that are more wants. So she knows that. And we've also talked about just from the standpoint of activities, because this is a child that wants to do everything. You say, do you want to take piano lessons or do you want to take gymnastics? I want to do both. Do you want to do this or this? I want to do both. She wants to do everything that she has the opportunity to do. And so what we've said to her is, listen, we'll try our best to give you opportunities to try anything you want to try. But at a certain point, you're going to kind of have to make some decisions about your priorities, because we only have a certain amount of time, we only have a certain amount of energy, and we only have a certain amount of money that we can spend on all of these things. And so she loves ice skating, and that's kind of her focus right now. And she's kind of branching out into some other things. But if she wants to add anything else on, we kind of remind her again, hey, we have a certain amount of time, energy, and money, and we have to figure out how we're going to spend that. And once we've spent it, it's done. So we have to really focus on the things that we enjoy the most, the things that bring us the most happiness, the things that, just are most important to us, and focus our time and our energy and money there. And so that's one way that she's sort of understanding budgeting from a kind of a financial point of view, because part of it is spending money, but also just time and energy as well. And there's a finite amount of those things.
That's just wild. I love it. I know, looking at my stepson, looking at his wallet and going into Goodwill is just intriguing to see what he's learned from his mom and stepdad, or basically his dad. So, but yeah, in this case, I'll just go to the next question because I don't have technically experience with this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 4. Woo!
Be careful when you go beyond 5. You got to use the other hand.
Ah. How about Caroline? What are you most proud of in terms of the whole money picture, whatever that means to you?
Most proud of, I guess, I'm proud of building knowledge in that area. And when my husband and I got married, which was 10 and a half years ago, we essentially had a zero net worth because he had a little and I was kind of in the negative area there, thanks to the housing market crash and all that kind of stuff, student loans, etc. And we've worked hard, and we've tried to learn how to work with the money that we have, and we're not in the zero and negative territory anymore. We're actually building and getting close to kind of an exciting place for us, a goal that we sort of set for ourselves, and we're approaching that, so we feel really good about it. And it's not like we've done it completely on our own. We've had some help along the way from parents, and we got a small inheritance, but kind of knowing what to do with those funds and knowing what to do with those resources in order to grow them and not have them sort of just get spent on
Exactly.
And so that's exciting. I retired a couple of years ago from a job that I didn't really like all that much, and so that was a really nice milestone for us to get to past that point and have me at home and be able to be there with our child, especially during COVID, that was fun to not have to try to balance work and helping her with her schoolwork and doing all the other things. It just takes a lot of the stress off when you have an emergency fund, when you don't have debt, when you have more time because one of you is able to kind of keep everything at home going while the other one goes to work. It's such a huge stress relief. And so we're feeling good about having kind of gotten to that point. It hasn't been easy,
No.
but it was definitely worth doing. And so, yeah, I feel proud of both of us because neither of us really had a whole lot of information going into it about personal finance, and we both learned a lot and put it into practice because sometimes you can know and you still don't do it. So I'm glad, and we're on the same page and we communicate about it really well. I don't think we would be where we are if he hadn't been on board with everything sort of that I brought to him and said, hey, how about this? How about if we think about doing this? And so that's really important too, is just sort of having, a common goal and having commonalities in terms of your values and how you want to get there. So we're lucky that we're well matched in that area.
That's very nice to hear.
It is really
It really
cool.
is. It's special that because so many people, there's so many separate ways of doing things within a family, but to both be on the same page with that, you're incredibly fortunate. Good for you.
It is tremendous. How about, why don't you take it now? What are you most proud of, John? As far as the money thing.
I think what I'm going to be most proud of is, that's an interesting question because there's many things I'm proud of, but there are many things that I'm ashamed of, that what I've done. And I'm not going to focus on the shame because I do that enough. I love teaching and I love turning that light bulb on. I used to be a high school baseball coach and I was a pitching coach. And when you teach somebody something different, it takes a long time for muscle memory to take over. And it's fun. And I remember a specific incident when we were at St. Cloud. It was during the summertime high school ball team, and we were playing in a tournament. And I was trying to teach this one young man a cutter. And finally it happened with him. And I could literally see him smile out there. And that's the joy that I get from teaching, is when it goes off. When I get people in which I teach them about credit, they apply it, and now they're buying their first home, and they're never going to get into credit trouble again. That's the joy I get. And I don't think it was all about joy, but that's what I'm the most appreciative of.
That's really cool. I think in my case, I am, at least for most recently, I'm super proud that I reduced my medical bill, which was probably, $2,000 due to some nasty summer experiences last summer. And I slashed it by at least half thanks to a conversation with you, John, as well as some help from Caroline and going after programs that they had for, shall we say, special care. And I thought, there's no shame in it. There are foundations for that very reason. If you've been giving back, then let them give to you. And because of that, I've got, 500 left. And I can do that really in no time.
Awesome.
Thank you. I mean, other than that, Norm and I haven't even touched credit cards in 5 years, something like that. So it's just a matter of, come on, mortgage, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm just proud that we've been doing pretty darn well given COVID and post-COVID, despite whatever challenges that we've had, name it ADHD, name it just life in general. But yeah, and not so much about proud in this sense for me, but one of the reasons that I enjoy hearing from both of you is I have learned, and I try to convey to others with my coaching or whatever, hang out with or be around people who love a topic you'd like to be more interested in. I can't say I'm that super fanatic about the money related issues, but hanging out with the two of you, whether it's Zoom or whatever situation, it rubs off. And you need to at least be somewhat interested in something that impacts every aspect of your life.
It really is huge.
My
Yeah.
goodness.
Right.
I mean, I'd probably be the one bringing people on tours of a grocery store and saying, okay, how do you spot a deal? And Norm would be the one who spots it because I'd want to run the hell the other direction. But I know that I need to eat. Last question. Drum roll. Uh-oh, I'm losing hands. How would you make this sticky conversation about the money thing more fun for people to engage in? Because thanks to COVID, people actually started talking about it.
Sure.
Caroline.
Tough one. That's a tough one. I think it depends on if they're people that you know already in your life, or if they're just strangers that have sort of expressed an interest in learning about something. If someone's expressed an interest in learning, I'll take their ear off and I'll tell them all sorts of stuff. If it's somebody that I know who hasn't expressed an interest, I don't really, I've said, hey, if you ever have any questions, or if there's ever something that's kind of confusing to you, I listen to this stuff a lot, and I don't know everything, but I'd be happy to help you kind of get a little bit of an idea of what's going on. And nobody ever takes me up on it, which is fun. I mean, it's not a priority for them, and that's okay. But I'm not going to push it with people that I know. I'm not going to push it. If they know I'm interested in it, and so they can come to me if they want to, and I will talk to them as much as they want to about it. And I will give them any knowledge that I've picked up that works into what they're trying to learn about. But yeah, I don't know. I think just maybe telling, 20-year-olds, hey, if you start investing $100 a month in an S&P 500 index fund that pays on average around 10% a year, you'll be a millionaire when you retire. And that's all it takes, $100 a month.
Yeah, that is right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people just feel like it's going to be this huge, insurmountable thing that's just going to take forever, and it's so much money, and there's just no way I can ever do it because rich people all inherit their money, and and that's just not true. It's really not. 80% of millionaires in this country didn't inherit anything, or they inherited such a small amount it really didn't make a difference in their becoming a millionaire. So
and it's not scratch offs.
Nope.
No.
It's not scratch up for the most part. In fact, John, this might interest you. I read that people that win the lottery have a 4 times higher rate of foreclosure than regular people
Yeah.
that didn't win
Because
the lottery.
they've never had money to manage before.
Yeah, they don't know what to do with it, right?
And they don't
feel
know
like-
the mindset. Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't that interesting?
Yeah. But get
What-
started when you're young, because if you wait until you're 50, you're going to have to put like $3,000 a month in, and do it while you're young. It's a lot more manageable.
Man, well, before I lose everybody due to being too lengthy, you know where to look for the info at the Lili channel, Laughter, Inspiration, Learning, Innovation. You can get the order wrong, but still spelled Lili. Caroline, John, you guys have been fabulous. Thank you so much for broadening everyone's horizons. We'll put your contact information, whatever is allowed, in the description. And happy Financial Literacy Month. Thank you all. Click
Thank you,
subscribe.
Lili, for allowing.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Lili.
Yeah, you
Thanks.
guys
John.
fun.